President Cyril Ramaphosa says the government is implementing the just energy transition at a pace and scale the country can afford. The Electricity Regulation Amendment Bill to support the restructuring of Eskom and establish a competitive electricity market was also tabled last year. Now, the President delivered the 2024 State of the Nation address at the Cape Town City Hall last night. Professor Hartmut Winkler, a professor of physics at the University of Johannesburg, joins us to discuss a little bit further. Prof, good afternoon, and thank you for your time on the SABC at this hour.
Good afternoon.
Prof. Hartmut, at this point, or according to the President, plans to urgently address the energy crisis are making gains, and with the end of load shedding finally within reach. This is what was echoed. Today, obviously, we woke up to stage 4 load shedding. It's also an election year. So I wonder at this point, from what's been echoed, do you think we have clear plans in place to deal with the power crisis once and for all?
There are plans, but they are not being implemented the way they should be. As far as this end of load shedding being in reach or when it's going to be, I still think it's going to take roughly 5 years until we are going to get to a situation where load shedding is really going to be an exception. My hope is that this year we're going to be slightly better than last year, but it's not going to be possible to end load shedding now. In order to do so, you need to set up a whole lot of extra power generating capacity, and that takes time. The biggest plants could take as long as 10 years. Like, for example, there was a talk of let's build a new nuclear plant. That will take at least 10 years. Last night, the President was talking a lot about renewable energy. That's a lot quicker, but that too takes about 2 or 3 years until you can do it. And I think one of the reasons why we are behind now is because the President mentioned in the last 5 years, we've set up, I think it was about 2.5 gigawatts of renewable energy. That's all very well, but according to the government plan, it was supposed to be 9 gigawatt. So why hasn't the rest happened? Because government was slow. As I said, it takes about 2 or 3 years to set those up. And so they should have started, if they wanted these to be finished by 2023, that it should have started the process in 2020. They only started in 2022. So there will be a couple of extra solar and wind plants coming online later this year, a few more in 2025. But until then, things are not going to improve substantially.
Because obviously it's about driving investor confidence. And so speaking about the issue of time and the pace of it all and plans versus implementation, the President spoke about restructuring the electricity sector, enabling private investment in transmission infrastructure, and quite a few other plans. And from your vantage point, what do you think is needed to deal with the energy crisis?
Yes, well, first of all, you need a good plan. Now, here I'm also worried because the latest draft plan that came out very late last year isn't pushing it in the right direction as far as I'm concerned. It's very heavily dependent on gas, and I'm just not convinced that that's the way to go. There's all sorts of potential problems with that, one of them being that gas can be an extremely expensive technology, and it also seems to be relying on gas resources off the South African coast. And I get the sense that those are overinflated. We don't really have that much of it around. So we need a good and realistic plan. And I think such a plan would have a very high proportion of wind and solar plants, given that the country's weather conditions are ideal for that. Now, it was interesting that last night the President was really waxing lyrically about renewables. That's all he talked about. He didn't say a word about gas or nuclear. Yet, when you talk to his Minister of Mineral and Energy, you hear a completely different story. So they're not on the same page. That's been a problem for quite a while, and it is one of the factors which is holding us back. It's also why, at the moment, it's not really government which is driving the recovery. It's more the private sector. The reason why we are slightly better now than last year is really because a whole lot of private enterprises, even domestic homes, have made their own arrangements and have installed solar. That's probably means that we're about one stage of load shedding better than we would have been otherwise. But that's not really enough. So we need a real concerted plan and everybody pulling in the same direction, and that's still not happening.
Because this is having knock-on effects on our economy. And given the promises, the hits, the misses in securing energy, I mean, we saw some attempts with appointing the minister. You're saying that the minister and the president are not singing from the same hymn sheet. They were missing court implementation deadlines for hospitals, schools, police stations at large. And this is obviously going into whether it's driving investor confidence. Nuclear, questions about that as well. Just renewable energy, green energy, the just energy transitions as well, complying with ESG principles. I just wonder at this point, if we look at the impact that this has had on the economy, on mining, given that electricity or energy is the lifeblood of our economy, what concerns arise for this year of 2024 on that front?
Yes, well, mines are one of the organizations that have really started doing things their own way. Quite a few mines, even coal mines, have started installing solar plants. But it is clearly a problem for them. They constantly got to think about whether they're able to operate 24 hours as they normally would like to. So it's holding back the economy. I'm pretty sure that the national growth rate is possibly as much as 1%. I don't know. I'm not an economist, but it's definitely making an impact. I think everybody in the country, including the government, would dearly love to be past this and would be able to say that they have got a full control of the situation. But right now, we're not there yet. At the same time, I think that a number of things happened last year, which the president, of course, was also love to highlight, that make it look the prospects slightly better than they would have otherwise. I think it has been successful in the sense that they have opened up the regulatory space, so it is now easier to set up your own power supplies. They've also instituted tax breaks and made it easier for people to take loans if they want to install the solar on their roofs and so on. So there have been moves like that which have definitely helped. But ultimately, I don't think it's a good idea if in the long run there is no, in other words, people just try and solve the problems on their own without some sort of a general national plan, some sort of leadership, and that really needs to be sorted out soon. Otherwise, we are going to get a situation where the rich people are going to be sitting pretty with their home installations and their businesses and factories all running, and the rest aren't. And load shedding could get even worse because Eskom, these are also Eskom's best customers. If they're not using Eskom electricity anymore, means less income for Eskom. And so that's definitely something that one needs to be very careful about looking into the future.
Absolutely. And that is why questions about the model are coming to the fore, the knock-on effects, what impact this has on crime as well, even issues of corruption, at this point. And so I just want to, as we conclude, weigh up the possibilities and the probabilities, even play with an imaginary crystal ball, because last year we experienced a record-breaking 332 days of load shedding. And given what has transpired, given what has been outlined, but the reality on the ground, is this year going to be any better?
Okay, I'm going to put my head on the block here. I'm going to say on average, we're going to be one stage of load shedding better than last year. And then probably the year thereafter, we're gradually going to improve by about 1 or 2 stages each year. And so if everything goes fine, if they really start pushing the construction of new generating facilities, if they manage to get the Eskom maintenance on track, then in about 5 years, we might get 1 or 2 days of load shedding a year. Yes, load shedding is not going to go away completely. Bear in mind that we even had load shedding in 2007 when Eskom still looked very healthy. So, but at least it's going to be something which is really going to be the exception. But until then, it's going to be just a slow improvement. And yes, I think even the second half last year was already better than I thought would happen. And so let's hope that we stay on this slightly upward trajectory.